Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. Happy Saturday, or if you're watching the YouTube version of this and you can see Keith and myself, happy Hatterday. It's a Saturday morning. We both wound up having to wear hats. Neither one of us wanted to really get ready this morning, but here we are. We didn't have a show yesterday, Friday. We were getting ready for our live Grizzlies versus Wolves play-by-play over on Playback. And so we thought we would make sure that we got in an extra show this weekend in order to make up for it. We've got a lot to break down around the NBA. We've got all of our second round series set. A lot of stuff to dive into. Keith, how are you doing, man? And how did you like doing the play-by-play last night?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I thought it was a cool way to interact with a lot of people. We had quite a few folks pop in and check it out. So, we appreciate that. And some people hung out with us the entire game, which was a lot of fun. And, I don't think either one of us is quite ready to make the jump to full-time play-by-play. Because I don't know that the average fan would put up with, a solid half hour of Marvel talk. But it was a lot of fun. We had a blast with it. I think people really enjoyed it that came. So thanks for coming and hanging out. And something we're going to check out in the future too. And maybe we talked about maybe the NBA draft or something like that, which would be a really fun fit for this show as we react to everything real time and watch it together. But yeah, I thought it was great. And it took a little sting off the Grizzlies winning and taking away the only chance at a game 7 we had in the first round.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and it wasn't a play-by-play in the traditional sense, but
No.
in any event, it was a blast. I'm already looking at our next game when we're going to do that coming up. Maybe we'll do it in a couple of days here or something. But what I'm going to do is Playback is offering to put all of the playoff games on that channel. So I'm going to put the link in the description down below here. So even if Keith and I aren't doing the play-by-play for it, which we're not going to do them for tomorrow's games or anything like that, the Celtics game obviously is so close to the other game that was on. I think it's the Warriors game.
Warriors,
Yeah,
Grizzlies.
I
Yep.
think it's too close. So what we're gonna do is it'll be on that channel. Both those games will be on the channel, streaming for you, ready to go, and people can still go in there and chat if they want to. So you can check out the link in the description down below over on the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. But enough about that.
Front runners unite, get in there and hang out with each other, man, make friends. But that was cool too to see
Yes.
people going back and forth with each other. And and if anybody's wondering, like, it wasn't like the internet tends to be, where it's a bunch of arguing and fighting. Like, people were very respectful and having a good time. So we appreciate you all, Front Office Nation.
I think that kind of reflects the tone of our show. So I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yep, I agree.
Speaking of which, Celtics and Lakers coexisting here on this show. As we noticed, Keith, I had a lot of Lakers fans that were upset with me last night because
Uh-oh.
I made the mistake of posting on Twitter my predictions for round two, including that I'm picking Celtics in 5 over the Bucks. I had a lot of people upset telling me I'm being disrespectful of Giannis Antetokounmpo. And I didn't feel like going into the full thing. I told people, hey, you can watch the front office show for the full explanation of why I
Love it.
picked Celtics in 5.
Yeah, that's I mean, we did cover that series already. It is tough. That was ultimately my pick as well, but it's with a lot of trepidation because it is a little disrespectful to be honest. It's I mean, he could win a
You
game or
could.
two almost by himself, but we said that about Kevin Durant too, and the Celtics, took care of him. Now, Giannis, completely different
Hmm.
player, completely different challenge, but it's there's no he doesn't have his running mate. Chris Middleton is out, likely for the entire series. So it's yeah, we'll start to get a sense tomorrow afternoon
Hmm.
here on the East Coast.
Is what it
Tomorrow
is.
morning for folks on the West Coast.
That's right.
Basketball with breakfast, right?
That's right. Not
Brunch,
bad.
I guess. Yeah.
Not a bad way to start your day. Speaking of the Grizz Wolves series concluding, what final takeaways from that before we move into the future series and the second round series and then some news bits? Thoughts on Grizz Wolves? The Memphis Grizzlies get it done in 6 games. How are you feeling about that one?
Yeah, I think we said this before. The Wolves were one of the only teams with less playoff experience than Memphis
Hmm.
in the field because they just haven't been there. And I think that showed. I think that showed in closing out games. I think Memphis trailed by 10 or more in the fourth quarter, or at least the second half of three games in this series. And they managed to win all three of those games. So that's obviously huge for them. And I think you saw the Wolves get a little panicky down the stretch, whether it was Karl-Anthony Towns took about a 35-foot three-pointer at one point with about a minute or so to play. It was just not a good time place for that shot. It didn't make a lot of sense, and he missed by a mile. So yeah, Memphis went in there and got it done. But the most entertaining series of the first
Yeah.
round, I think, without a doubt. There was the one blowout game in there, but other than that, it was close games, up and down, a lot of action, a lot of crazy stuff happened, and two fun young teams that you kind of look at those two and the Pelicans, and if they handle things right, that's kind of the future of the Western
Hmm.
Conference, I think. Of with those three teams of hey, just retain your guys, build the right teams around them, and you could see those three teams doing stuff for years to come in the West.
Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoyed this series, and not because it was the most beautiful basketball, because it certainly was
No,
not, but it was
yeah.
close games. These two teams got after each other. It was super competitive. And then of course you had the comeback element, right? Where in most of these
Hmm.
games the Wolves were happy. They're yelling and screaming and fired up and
Yep.
doing all that kind of stuff. And then come fourth quarter, that doubt started to creep in. They start missing shots. They tighten up. And then here's the Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies just kind of stayed within arm's length the entire game, stayed right there, and
Yep.
then overtook them in the fourth quarter. And we saw that game script play out a number of times. And credit to the Grizzlies for being the team that, as a young team themselves, but having the composure and the experience to ultimately get the job done. And I'm excited to see Grizzlies Warriors. I think that's going to be a really good series.
Yeah, I completely agree. We're going to get to that one in a minute. One thing, because I just don't want to
Yeah.
lose it, is that sense of how the Grizzlies just keep
Yeah.
coming is going to be huge for them in the series against the Warriors. Because the Warriors, they're not the Warriors, right? They're not quite that team, but they're not far off that team
Yeah.
either, where they can kind of hit you with that avalanche, and the next thing you know, you're down 15 in a 3-minute period, and you're like, "What happened?" But the Grizzlies just keep coming, they just keep working. That's going to be big for them in that
Yeah,
series.
absolutely, absolutely, and we will get to that series in just a moment. But let's jump into a little bit of news first, especially coming out of this Grizzlies Wolves game. Karl-Anthony Towns
Hmm.
asked about his future and said he is willing to sign an extension with the Minnesota Timberwolves, which I still think he's catching a lot of flack today,
Yep.
and perhaps rightfully so. But he's still
Sure.
an incredibly talented player. I still think there's leaps and bounds that his game can make with some relatively simple tweaks here and there that can make him a more effective player. And I would expect him to continue to improve. And I think this would be a great thing for Minnesota because as much as this loss stings, this Wolves team, they exceeded expectations this year, and I think the future is looking
Yep.
bright, particularly with this combo of Towns and Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, big time. And Towns has 2 years left on his deal, 33.8 million next year, 36 million the year after. But it's that year after that
Mhm.
that then that's when this extension would kick in. This is kind of similar to what Giannis did, what um uh Joel Embiid did as well, adding the years when they've got a couple left. We're seeing extensions are the thing right
Mhm.
now. These guys are grabbing the money and locking it in when they can. So yeah, that would be my guess too, is that he'll lock that in. And how it will be written is it'll be written as a max extension because regardless of what happened in this playoffs, Cat's getting a
Yeah.
max. Like, let's not get crazy. So it'll just be written as whatever it is when it kicks in, he'll get his max at that point there, and that's how it'll go. It's starting with the 24-25 season, which it's weird. That both sounds like it's forever away, but then it's also like that's only 2 more seasons and then we're there. Like I don't know. I'm caught in this right now where there's still sometimes I look and I think it's like 2020 just started, but it's we're at the end of the 2022 season here. So like we're not that far out from these mid 20s years popping in, which is I don't know. That's just an aside here on a Saturday morning. That has my brain a little broken.
It's the COVID hangover still that
Yeah.
it's we're living in bizarro world in that sense. But do you find it inappropriate at all that players coming off of a difficult loss, you look at Utah with Donovan Mitchell, we'll talk about him in just a second. Now Karl-Anthony Towns, that they're getting asked immediately about what their plans are. Are they asking a trade? Are they signing an extension? All that
Yeah.
kind of is that just kind of the nature of the beast at this point, and it is what it is, or should those questions be wait until at least the next day for exit interviews, or how do you feel about that? Because I've seen some bristling at that.
Sure, and I get that, right? Because it's tough, but you also want to get real and raw
Yep.
reaction from guys, and it's never going to be more real or raw than immediately after. Now, sometimes I think we have to find middle ground with it.
Hmm.
If if Karl-Anthony Towns came off the court, and let's be very clear that he said the exact opposite, but was like, "I'm done. I want out of here. I want to go." And then the next day was like, hey, I was
Sure.
emotional, I really don't want that. I think we need to be willing to forgive,
Yes.
right? Because if we're going to ask the questions, we need to be willing to understand, right? I mean, probably more than I should ever admit. I say a lot of things when I'm in the heat of the moment and I'm fired up, that I'm kind of like, yeah, that wasn't cool, like I shouldn't have said that.
Hmm.
That welcome to life as a parent, right? But it's but there's it is, long as we're willing to forgive. One, not all these guys do the exit interviews,
Yeah.
right? They'll just bounce, or the team won't even make them available, and they'll go.
Hmm.
So you run into that challenge. So it's kind of the job of a reporter is, I've got them in front of me. I don't know when I'll have them in front of me again. I'm going to ask the question and go. So I think that becomes the challenge. But yeah, as long as we're willing to be forgiving, give these guys a little bit of leeway. I think it's okay to ask and understand, hey, the next day, a week later, whenever it is, maybe they have slightly different feelings.
That is a great point that I think most people won't think about, and that's exactly where I go to with this. For anybody who's saying, "Well, you need to wait until exit interviews or wait until another time," a lot of these guys, and rightfully so, they disappear for the summer, or they don't make themselves available for the
Mm-hmm.
summer, and that's fine. Again, taking a step away, totally get it.
Sure. Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that at all. But you can't count on the exit interview being there. Like for example, the Lakers this year went right before their final game against the Nuggets, went, surprise, it's Anthony Davis's exit interview right now. You guys have like 10 minutes, and didn't even invite most of the media. It was just a couple of people that happened to be there.
Yep.
And so most people had no opportunity to ask Anthony Davis anything. You
Mm-hmm.
never know when an organization is going to try to pull something like that to get a player, through without answering questions and all that kind of stuff. So if they're in front of you, you got to ask the question, even if it is a little unseemly, in the heat of the moment right there after a difficult loss. It's tough, but it's the job, and it's just kind of
Yeah,
the
it feels
reality of it.
rough. Like,
Yeah.
yep. Yeah, that's exactly it. But I do want to say, like, hey, let's be more
Yes.
understanding when it comes back around on the backside, like I said, because if we're gonna ask them in the heat of the moment, well, then be recognized. Maybe we need to come back and give a different answer
And
later.
that's where let's jump to the Donovan Mitchell comments, because that's where I think that what you're saying here applies to what Donovan Mitchell said when he was asked about whether or not he would be requesting a trade from the Utah Jazz.
Hmm.
He's a lot of people are taking this, him saying, well, I need a week and all that kind of stuff, as like, if you're a Jazz fan, you wanted to hear, no, I'm definitely not requesting a trade. I love it here. I want to stay here forever. I want to finish my career. Like, that's the kind of stuff that you want to hear. But from the human side, you can understand if after a difficult loss where they had a chance to win the game at the buzzer, the shot rims out by Bogdanovich, that's frustrating. All of that, it's this contested series, all this stuff. You step off the floor and you're being asked about your future. And Donovan Mitchell says, I don't know. I need a week to kind of think about it, that sort of thing. I
Yep.
think we can understand why he would say that and not just assume that means he wants to leave. And I feel like a lot of people are jumping to that conclusion right now.
That's exactly it. I think this is a perfect example of all right, let's give this a little room to breathe. It's he didn't have the right
No.
answer on I don't even remember what day it was that series ended, but on that night he did not have the right answer. He's also not ready, I think, to talk about it at that point. I think it was, hey man, I'm hurting
Yeah.
right now. Like this is a tough spot. So I think the challenge comes with these things is if you're gonna say I'll think about that in a week, then I want to hold the players accountable and say, hey, can we follow up then in a week?
Correct.
Right. Or, if you're like, yeah, I'm still not ready to talk, then that's okay. Then just leave it. But if you're going to throw out a timeline, be prepared for, then if someone sees you at a restaurant or, out somewhere, like they're probably going to ask like, hey, what are you thinking? So it's just, it's that give and take there, but it's, I tend to believe with this one is, if Donovan Mitchell wants to leave Utah, it's it'll come when it
Yeah.
comes. Like I guess and I think maybe that's out of his hands too. It may be one of those things where Danny Ainge and Justin Zanuck, who run the team now, are like, yeah, we're gonna go a different direction entirely with this. It's starting to sound an awful lot like Quinn Snyder's going to be out. Whether that's sounding more now like that might be by his choosing
That's
than by the
the Sam
Jazz's.
Amick piece from The Athletic made that, very strongly suggested that's the case, that the Jazz want him. And then Justin Zanuck's comments, again, the days are blurring together. I don't remember if it was yesterday or the day before, but I mean, very, very overtly said the same thing right out that, we want to partner with him. We want him around, but Quinn Snyder, does he want to be there? That's the question mark here.
That's exactly it. So I mean, change is coming for the Utah Jazz one way or another. So, we'll see how it comes. That'll all develop here over the coming months.
Positive on the extension front for New Orleans, Zion Williamson said he wants an extension with New Orleans. And remember, there have been a lot of questions. There's been people saying, oh, his family members don't like New Orleans. He wants to go to New York, all of these things. And he's, just coming right out saying, yeah, I want to do an extension. And maybe as a player coming off of a lost season here due to injury, that may have given him a little bit more incentive to say, hey, yeah, I would like to take that money, please. But
yes, please give me hundreds of millions.
Yes,
I thank you.
Exactly.
After my 80, what is he at? 83 games or something
3 years
in his career.
Is that how many it is?
85.
Okay.
85 games in 3 years. So
that's rough.
One full season.
But when he plays, he's so good.
So good.
That's the thing here. Good. So we talked about this a little bit on our live stream last night over on Playback. That you're saying if you're the Pelicans, you give him that extension, but you need to put in some things to protect yourself, a la Joel Embiid, where you put in games played targets and things like that to try to make sure that, hey, you can get out of this deal should he just, disappear in terms of his availability.
Yeah, games played, prior injury exclusions. So if if the knee becomes a problem again, you go there. Yeah, I think that is a must. If I'm the Pelicans, I think I have to be protected because I can't give this guy a full 5-year max deal, and then just hope for the best, right? I have to be protected to some extent. And I would hope he would understand, and look at with Embiid got healthy, stayed healthy, largely. We're going to get into that in a little bit. But that's where you kind of, work through that, on that end, with him. So, we'll see how that goes.
Let's talk, you mentioned it. So,
hey, sorry, if I can say one thing too. Sorry, one thing I wanted to add. I thought I was going to sneeze as I was finishing that point. It's Saturday morning. I do think, because I've seen a lot of people is this guy even worth it? This is what he did 2 years ago. 27 points per game, 7.2 rebounds, 3.7 assists on 61% shooting from the field. Yeah, he's worth it. He's worth every point. I mean, this guy is awesome. It's just, can you stay on the court? And again, I feel like we jumped in the time machine here and we went back, and these are the same conversations we had about Embiid. This guy is dominant. He's awesome. Can he stay healthy? So that's why I make that Embiid comp and say you really gotta protect yourself if you're the Pelicans on this one. But they handing him the full 5 years and the money, no issue at all, because he'll deliver if he can
Oh,
play.
he's a destroyer of worlds. It was last season when the Lakers and Pelicans played against each other, and LeBron, who's I mean a pretty physical guy himself, and Zion were going after each other. It was like Man of Steel, right? Where
Yeah,
we had the battle that just destroys the city, and it's Zod again,
yeah,
and Zod against Superman and all of that. And that's basically what we watch. Like Zion is ridiculous
yeah.
when he's healthy. So this is like you take this Pelicans team that just had a really nice season. Even losing the first round, they exceeded expectations. They're on the rise. That arrow's pointing up. You add a guy like Zion to the mix. As almost, I mean, he would be like
Mhm.
just a free agent almost fine that you would add in,
Yeah.
right? That could take that team to a whole other level to where now they're suddenly one of the top teams in the conference. So you get this done, and as long as you put in protections, you got to feel pretty good about it.
So look at the right, and we talked about this a little bit, but they only have one free
Hmm.
agent outside of their it did three if you count their two-way guys, but one standard free agent. That's Tony Snell. Um, they're one small salary dump away from being able to use the full taxpayer mid-level as
Hmm.
well to add a player. But this is potentially let's be very optimistic. Hope Zion's back. They're potentially rolling into next year with a starting group of Valanciunas, Zion, Ingram, Herb Jones, and CJ McCollum. Like that's pretty
That's
good
big. That's
already.
physical. Oh,
Versatile.
versatile.
Yeah,
Yep.
you've got enough shooting with that group. Then off the bench, you're coming with Nance, Murphy, Alvarado, Jackson Hayes slides to the backup
Hmm.
five in that spot, and then you've got Trey Murphy rather, who really came along as a
Troy
shooter.
Murphy's going back a few years there.
Yeah, right. Trey Murphy, the third, came along as a shooter as the year went along too. So, and then you get injuries. You've got Donji Marshall, you've got Willie Hernan Gomez as depth pieces there that are guys I know that they really like. I mean, they nailed their
Hmm.
draft with Murphy, Jones plucking Alvarado off the undrafted market. All the things where it looked like, oh man, did they kind of really butcher this? Now all of a sudden, David Griffin and crew look like, all right, it just took time. It just took time to come together, and we haven't seen Zion yet. So yeah, I think that's one where I'm very, very excited to see the Pelicans play next year. But let's move on to teams that are still. Or well, we got
We've got
one
one
more,
more. We've
right?
got
One
Zach
more on the
LaVine.
guy. Then we'll move on to teams that are still
So
playing.
Zach LaVine says he plans to enjoy free agency, and that's got some Bulls fans a little bit nervous
Yeah,
with a comment like that. But I keep looking at this free agent like this is the saving grace here. Why I don't think Bulls fans should be that nervous. Where's he going to go? Look at the teams out
yeah.
there that have cap space. Are any of them a threat to go land Zach LaVine right now? I don't think so. So if he wants to enjoy free agency, if he wants to let teams pitch him and try to sell him and all that kind of stuff and do his thing, that's fine. I mean, players only have so many opportunities to do that over the course of their career. But I don't
Yeah,
see where, even if he wanted to leave, I don't see where he would go in this market.
I the other thing too is this is a guy who he's had some knee problems
Sure.
twice in his career. He had the torn ACL. Now he's had this other knee issue. That fifth year of locked in guaranteed money may mean a lot to
Good
him. A
point.
lot of times we get too much where people will say, because the incumbent team's the only team that can give that fifth year of max money, where change teams you can only give 4 years. I try to tell people you really got to compare the 4 year total to the 4 year
Hmm.
total. And then you're talking a 3% difference in raises, 3 percentage point difference between 8% to 5%. So it really isn't all that much money in the grand scheme of things, 4 years to 4 years. But in the case of LaVine, where you've had injury issues, that fifth year may really mean something. And that becomes a little bit of the challenge with this. So you have to, that has to be factored in. I know you know this, so this is not directed at you, my Lakers fan friend. But it is, I did radio in California, and they were like, what if he wants to come to the Lakers? He wants to come back, to LA because he went to college at UCLA. He wants to come to the Lakers. Wouldn't the Bulls have to do a Westbrook trade just to avoid losing him for nothing? And I was like, no, you're not losing him for nothing there. You're taking on, a not great contract. So it's not like that's probably not the direction this is going to go unless the Bulls had other stuff lined up and all these other things. My guess is LaVine is saying the right things. He's going to put the pressure on the Bulls to make sure they don't even play games, right? Because you could maybe be like, hey, coming off this knee injury, what do we think? Maybe 4 years or something, Put the pressure on, say, hey, I'm going to go listen to everybody. I'm going to, enjoy this. But your bigger point that you started with is, where's he going to go? I mean, I only project 3 teams to have cap space. It's the Pistons, the Pacers, and the Spurs. I don't think any of them are going there. And then the last 2, they're going to struggle to get to max space to get there to offer him anyway. So that's a whole other challenge. So I think this is one of those, he comes back with the Bulls. He's there. They run it back, hopefully healthier. And because they were pretty good when healthy, and then they'll see what they look like, mid-season if they need to make more moves.
I mean, I guess in theory, he could try to push for a sign and trade somewhere, but again, I don't see it. So in any event.
Here's the challenge with sign and trades, though, for max money guys this year. That hard caps you as the acquiring team, and a lot of teams are already dancing right around that hard cap next year. Like so if you're bringing him in at max money, you better be sending back
a lot
similar money, if not more. So that becomes a little bit of a challenge.
Yep. Yeah. Again, more reason for Bulls fans. It's not great. Obviously, you want to hear him say, "Oh yeah, the second that deal's on the table, I'm signing that thing." That's probably what you want to hear. But I don't think it's reason to panic or anything like that. That he's saying what he is here.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is, I mean, he said, we're going to have to experience A through Z without making any fast decisions. It's also, as we're recording this, it's April 30th, and he said this on April 29th. Free agency doesn't even open for more than 2 months. And even then, he'll have about 5 days before anything can be official and locked in. So, neither one of us is naive or stupid enough to think there's not already some back channeling stuff going on. So his agent and LaVine will have a pretty good sense of where this, who might be pitching, who might be lining things up, and we'll get a good sense. But I find it very hard to believe, that he's going to leave. And I also think it's I think it's going a little too far of reading into like he's leaving, or reading into, well, he's just saying this. I think he is going to consider his options and see where it goes.
All right, let's jump into our preview series. We've got to talk a little bit about Suns-Mavs, Grizzlies, Warriors, 76ers, Heat. And this is strange when I'm looking at this, but the series that I feel is the most ripe for an upset is where we're going to start. And that's Suns-Mavs, which feels weird because the Suns have been the best team in the NBA over the course of the season. And I'm not saying that an upset is likely here. It's not. But there are some factors in the other series that have me believing those are not as likely for upsets. So let's jump into it. Suns-Mavs. The Mavs did a nice job against the Utah Jazz, ultimately closing that out. You've got a healthy Luka Doncic now. What are you feeling on this series? Can the Mavs make a real run here at Phoenix?
Unlike a couple other things we're going to talk about, looks like Luke is healthy. Looks like Devin Booker's healthy. He looked pretty good to me in Phoenix's closeout game against the Pelicans. So that's great, right? Because we want these teams at full health. Unfortunately, we're got a couple others that are not going to be. I think this is closer than people are giving it credit for too, because I think Dallas is. There's 2 things. One, they're built to kind of go like grain with the way the Suns want to defend. And I think they are also they have enough size and defense to cause the Suns some problems. The key is going to be, who does Luka guard in this series? My thought is probably Jay Crowder, because he's the standstill shooter for the Suns. And he can help a little bit there because, I mean, we saw that help block he had on Gobert in the final game of that series at the rim. So I think you'll see him come in. But because, we'll see like Booker would cook him off the dribble. Mikal Bridges now all of a sudden it's like, hey, maybe defensive player of the year soon guy, like throwing in what 90 something points in 2 games or whatever
He's
it
been
was.
good.
Like that's crazy. And then obviously Luke on Chris Paul would just be not good because it
No.
ended up in fouls and a bunch of arguing
And you
about
can't put him on Aiden. So it's
Aiden.
got to be Crowder just
Yeah,
by
yeah, it's
process
got
of
to be Crowder.
elimination.
But the reason why I even bring that up is he's kind of the only weak link defensively that either one of these two teams really has.
Mm-hmm.
Because Booker, now that he brings consistent effort, he's solid. My guess is not guess. I mean, the Suns are going to put Bridges on Luca, and they're just going to play it out and work that way. They'll put Crowder on him if they need to. They'll come off the bench with some size with Cam Johnson. When they go there on him, but so it's going to be the chess match is going to be, can Luca solve the Suns defense? And why I think they're good is they want to kind of live in the mid range, which is not where teams generally live, and that's where the Suns want to force you to. They want to run you off the arc, and then they want to defend you at the rim.
Mm-hmm.
If you're willing to live in the mid range, you can get some work done, and that's where the Mavs kind of live.
How do you deal with, and this is my big question mark for the Mavs, and I think this is ultimately what pushes the series in favor of the Suns. How do you handle DeAndre Ayton if you're Dallas? I mean, we can talk Dwight Powell, Davis Bertans isn't going to be big enough to get any minutes there. Maxi Kleba can get some time there, but I do question whether or not you've got the size and quality necessary to deal with Ayton in there. I think that's going to be a big problem for Dallas in this series, but I do agree that it's closer than most people would think. And here's the other thing. I thought this was interesting. I went back through the Mavs and the Suns games from this past season, and the Suns essentially have not played the Mavs this season. Not this version of the Mavs.
Yeah.
The first 2 times they played 3 times. The first 2 times they played, Luka was not in action. The last time they played, Kristaps Porzingis was playing. It was pre-Porzingis trade, and this Mavs team has looked different post-Porzingis trade, which isn't a surprise. So the Suns, it's not like the Suns have a whole lot of experience here against this team to go off of. They've only played against Luka once, and that was when Porzingis was still playing. The Mavs looked a lot different at this point. I think there's going to be a feeling out process, especially in game one of this series, and that's going to cause some adjustments to be made by the Suns. And so I think that's going to make for a closer series than what you would anticipate on the surface.
Yeah, I think too. I think sometimes we get in this sense of we look at the Suns and the Mavs, and you see Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Ayton, Bridges, and Luca and Brunson, and these other guys on the Dallas roster, and we think like, oh man, this is gonna be there'll be a lot of points and all these things. I don't think so. Dallas plays at a snail's pace. I mean, they want to walk the ball up. Both teams are very good defensively, different defensive styles, but both are very good. I think what's going to be big is the Suns. I think we have the sense it's Chris Paul, so it's a slow team. They actually play pretty quick. They'll get out and run. They're top 10 in pace this year, and we saw that against the Pelicans. They'll run opportunistically. The reality is you play at whatever pace Chris Paul wants to play at, right? Both teams. If he decides we're going to run tonight, you're going to run. If it's we're going to play slow down, we're going to slow down. But it's going to be important. Dallas needs to try to lock that down to playing at their pace, because the more possessions, it just favors the Suns. They have better depth. They have more guys who can carry the offensive load. It doesn't have to rely. They're not so heliocentric like the Mavs are around Luka. So that becomes a challenge for them.
That was appropriate. Heliocentric in a series that involves the Phoenix Suns. Good stuff.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So
I mean, I
look at that. Look at that. Learned scholars here on the NBA front office show.
Yeah.
So what?
Send everybody to their dictionaries.
With my last point here, or I guess last pair of points here, Reggie Bullock shot 42% from three against the Jazz. I think he's going to be critical for this series for the Suns. They've got to get that kind of production out of him. And then lastly, the benches. I think on paper, Phoenix's bench is stronger. Spencer Dinwiddie, I think, is the X factor here for the Mavs. If he can have a big series and at least get close to pulling the Mavs bench even in these games, then I think then we'll have a real series. If the Suns bench comes in, Cam Johnson's hitting a bunch of shots, Cam Payne is doing his thing, that's going to be tough to overcome for the Mavs. I think that the Mavs bench has to at least play close to even with the Suns bench, and then all bets are off. It could go either way.
Let me add to that too, because I agree with everything you just said. Kleba and Bertans have to get some work done against Ayton and JaVale McGee,
Yes.
especially against JaVale McGee. They need to make shots. They need to pull those guys out of the paint to open up that kind of mid-range work stuff for Dallas. That's big. They're going to need those two guys to come through. Kleba was great in the beginning part of the Utah series for Dallas. Dinwiddie was a little up and down, so I'm with you on that one. He's got to bring some scoring punch. But yeah, if the Suns bench wins the reserve battle, I don't think Dallas can win this
Yeah.
series. I don't think they have a
Right.
chance on this, because I think starting group to starting group might be able to play a little more even, but they've got to if they get really outplayed by the Suns reserves, that they're in trouble. All right, what's your pick?
My pick. Oh gosh, I have to go back on Twitter and double check here. I think I want to say no. This was my. I said this one was going to go 7. I've got Suns in 7 on this one, and I think part of that is my wishful thinking, my own basketball heart, hoping that we get a game 7 in one of these. And like I said, I think this is the most ripe for an upset, even though I wouldn't pick an upset. And so I said Suns in 7. But again, that's my heart picking it. My head doesn't say it's going to take 7 games, but that's what I'm going to go with.
Yeah, so in that, yeah, I promise I'm not stealing your pick, but I'm in the same place. I started doing the math, right? We only have 49 possible games left in this season. I want, I want as many of them as we can get. So I'm definitely letting my heart overrule my head a little bit here. So I do kind of think I think Suns in 6 feels
Mhm.
right. I don't think they're going to be intimidated going on the road and winning a game 6 on the road or anything like that. So but I think, I think that feels right. But I'm also going to pick Suns in 7 because that's more what I want
Mhm.
it to be. I want a game 7.
All right, let's jump over to the Warriors and the Grizzlies. This is a series where we just talked about at the start of the show. We talked about the Grizzlies and the Wolves and how sloppy the series was overall. I mean, very very high, very contested series, right? We saw a lot of just battling back and forth, and so that made it a lot of fun. Both those teams were just going after each other, but it wasn't always beautiful basketball. And here's the thing: the Grizzlies, the mistakes that they made, right? They're not going to make mistakes in terms of effort. They're going to be going 100 miles an hour the entire game, every player on the roster, which is
Mm-hmm.
great. It makes them enjoyable to watch. But in terms of the mistakes that they make, there's certain teams in the NBA that when you make a mistake against that team, it'll be like a flashing neon sign, and that team will every single time say thank you and will punish you for making that mistake. And the
Yep.
Warriors happen to be one of those teams. And so I don't think that bodes very well for the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, Memphis continues to just get after you. You mentioned it, they come at you in waves. So I think that's going to keep this thing close. But ultimately, I think the Warriors' execution is too good, and they're going to pick apart the Memphis Grizzlies in this one.
Yep. If Memphis is as sloppy as they were against Minnesota, they're going to be done quick. I think they'll clean some of
Mhm.
that up. I think they maybe got caught up a little bit in Minnesota. Again, not to I promise I'm not trying to hammer a point here, but pace is going to be important here. Memphis wants to get up and down. They want it to be a running game. That sounds super dangerous against the Warriors because we know what they can do as an offensive team. But if you watch the Warriors, that's the single biggest difference I think between the Dynasty Warriors and the Warriors now is that group was perfectly content to run
Yeah.
all day. This group's a little more. We're going to pick you apart with precision in the half court. We're just going to run our stuff, and you're going to find it impossible to defend. They'll run, but it's more opportunistically. Where Memphis is, let's go, let's get it and go. I do think Steven Adams kind of reemerges in this series, probably more in the Kevon Looney minutes than anything else. But I think that'll be important because you want to close down the rim, you want to make sure you're taking care of the boards. But I think Memphis needs to run. Try to really get these guys going. Try to get them tired. They're an older
Mhm.
team. Try to really get it so their legs are feeling it in the fourth quarter because you ran them for 3 full quarters early on. Um, I just the Grizzlies aren't ready yet for this with a healthy Warriors team. That's the thing. I think we're close. We're on the tipping point. And I think this is going to be one when next year and years beyond, we might point back to, remember that 2022 series when, the Grizzlies lost, but they were
Yep.
there. Like they were battling like that. That was the one where it was like, that's where you knew, like, that's the feel I have on this one.
Yeah, agreed. I think they're going to take a page from the Wolves series too, and they're going to go at John Morant a lot, force him to defend, and then hopefully that will help. He seems like his energy reserves are limitless, but I think they are going to go after John Morant quite a bit on that end of the floor. We'll see how that ultimately looks.
They're going to drop him too when he drives to the rim. They're going to make him hit the floor,
being there waiting for him.
Not in dirty ways, but they're just physical. They're going to make you pay if you come inside.
Does Steven Adams get minutes in this series?
I think so. Like I said, I think against Kevon Looney, I think to make sure you take care of the boards, you limit, because you give the Warriors second chances, you're done. Like they're not going to miss shots the second time around, and they're sneaky good on the offensive glass. It's I just had it up. Let me re-pull it, but it's not, they're not in a position where it's you're like, oh man, this team's the most dominant offensive rebounding team I've seen. They were 18th in the league, but they're sneaky how they get them. They get them, and they tend to. I bet if I don't have the ability to pull it right now, but I bet if we looked, we would say, holy cow, they really make you pay on converting second chance opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's so that'll be something to watch there. When we're looking at the other matchups here, Dylan Brooks, I think he's a guy who really is going to matter for the Grizzlies if they want to keep this thing close. His matchups are going to be important. Is he able to?
Well, we said it last night during playback too. He will come in thinking he's the best player on the floor.
That's right.
In every game, and that's fine. You need guys like that.
Can he score efficiently though? That's going to be a big question mark. And more often than not, the answer is no. Sometimes they still need that scoring burst anyway. Jaren Jackson Jr., can he stay out of foul trouble? Stephen Curry, certainly when he gets into the paint, can pick up a few fouls on him. No problem. It's going to be interesting to see how the Grizzlies approach this, because they can continue to come at you in waves. If they keep this thing close, they've got the confidence, especially after this last series, that they can still get the win. We've seen them come back from down double digits in the fourth quarter and beat the Wolves. So the Grizzlies are going to be kind of riding that confidence. But ultimately, again, I just keep falling back on the Warriors are too good. Steph Curry is too good. By the way, we haven't even talked about this. Does Steph Curry come off the bench?
No,
he's back to
there. I think they're going to go with that Green, Wiggins, Thompson, Poole, Curry lineup that they went with in their last game against Denver. I think Steve Kerr looked at it and said, "All right, let's stop messing around. Let's just go with these guys and didn't go."
The one positive thing here for the Grizzlies is Brandon Clark was really, really good against the Wolves. And I think that's the answer to when the Warriors are smaller, when Kevon Looney is not on the floor. You can play him and you can get a lot out of him there. And so that helps them in terms of this matchup. But, and look, Desmond Bane's been great in the playoffs, and he's going to continue to be a major factor. His duel with Klay Thompson's going to be huge. But ultimately, I think I just don't think the Grizzlies are ready for this. So I guess if we want to get to our picks, I believe for this one I have Warriors in 6 over the Grizzlies.
Same boat. That's where I'm going to. And I think this is one where maybe the last couple wins for the Warriors are kind of big. It's weird. I think it's going to be Warriors in 6, but in a sense where they may be up 3-1 going into game 5, and they lose, and then because remember, Memphis has home court advantage, not Golden State, which seems a little weird, but it is that way. But I think, we might see the Warriors up 3-1. They lose game 5, and then they come home and close it out in San Francisco. So, I'm also Warriors in 6.
Warriors are the 1.5 favorite to win game 1 in this one on the road. So, something to watch there.
And they've been sitting for a couple days, too. So, this one also... I think this is also kind of important for the older Warriors. This one matches the weird scheduling of Celtics Bucks, where they play Sunday, Tuesday, and then they don't play again till Saturday. So there's a lot of days off in the middle as they travel. Again, both of those teams apparently are driving halfway across the country each way to get there instead of travel. I mean, I get it; it's for TV.
Sure.
And you're trying not to get the series too far apart from the other conference, but I do think that helps. And then if this was to get to a game 7, that one flips and doesn't get played till Monday. They would be 2 days off. So just a couple things working in the older Warriors' favor here with as far as days off go.
All right, let's jump to the final series here. We've got the Heat and the 76ers, and unfortunately, Joel Embiid, we found out last night, fractured orbital, has a concussion, and he's just listed as out. Teams, again, tend to be, we've talked about this before, tend to be a little withholding when it comes to information on injuries come playoff time. But this does not sound good. I don't know if he gets back for the series or not. Maybe we see the masked Joel Embiid coming back. Perhaps that's a thing. We'll see. Obviously, for the 76ers, you have to hope. But I don't think this is going to be close if Joel Embiid doesn't play in this series. And look, the Heat have had their own injuries to deal with. Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry. So it's possible something pops up there again, and that diminishes them. And then next thing you know, you've got a battle. But at the outset of this, assuming the Heat are healthy and Jimmy Butler's past the knee issue and everything's good there, I don't see how the 76ers can keep this close at all if Embiid is not on the floor.
Yeah, I completely agree. If Embiid was playing, it'd be a completely different series. It would be close. If he doesn't play, the Heat are... So if Embiid plays, the Heat can't do their switching defense, and you kind of neutralize a lot of what makes Bam Adebayo special, because you don't want to switch him away from Embiid too often. Yes, PJ Tucker can defend him. He's, he'll do his thing as well, but you really don't want to end up with Lowry, Butler, God forbid, Strus, Hero, Robinson trying to guard Embiid. That's not going to go well. And that's where the Sixers attack a lot of out of Harden on those. So it just makes everything much more difficult. Now, if he doesn't play, who knows where they even go to? Please, for the love of God.
I was going to say, is that what we're staring down? Is a playoff start for DeAndre Jordan?
I'm afraid it will be. I'm afraid it will be. And then Adebayo, then he becomes like a singular destructive defensive weapon because he's not even going to defend him. Yeah. He's just going to say, hey, you want to make your offense throwing lobs to him? Go for it. I'm going to be all over Harden, Maxey, Harris. And so that's the difference, right? That's the big, big difference. If you don't have Embiid, I know I sound like, hey, thanks, Captain Obvious, for saying he stresses the defense, because of course he does. But it's just it actually changes the way Miami has to defend too. They cannot defend the same way. So now, if he's not there, they load up against Harden and Maxey. They'll play. My guess is Tucker on Harris, and they'll say, all right, let's go. And it'll just be, Adebayo as a helper and doing all this stuff that he does. And it's going to become a problem. And it's not like Philly has great options where it's like, all right, so you know what, we'll just go small and spread them out, because Doc will not play the Niang Harris 4-5 calm every reason. Now, he may get forced into it, and I think he can get away with it in this series. And I think he has to consider doing it, because at least then maybe, all right, hey, we've seen Harden go to work with a spread offense where you really spread it out in this. I feel like if Philly's going to have a chance without Embiid, Korkmaz might need to be involved just for some shooting off the bench. I think that'll help a little bit. There's places where you can hide him too on guys some. So I just gave the 15 maybes, and that leads me to Philly's a rough shot here if they don't have Embiid.
The path to victory without Embiid would be both Maxey and Harden would have to go nuclear. And Maxey's been great. He's been great.
And help.
Yeah, and you've got to get, and Tobias Harris would have to be chipping in. You'd have to come up with, and the Heat's defense has been fantastic, so I'm not saying that these guys would be able to do these things, but you would need to have some really impressive performances from Maxey, from Harden. Tobias Harris would have to be chipping in order to get this done. And again, that's just assuming the Heat are healthy, but man, I mean, no Embiid, it just changes this whole series so much. I mean, you look at Danny Green, you look at him as being a guy who really relies on a guy like Joel Embiid to kind of to draw that attention. James Harden can do it a little bit, right? So can Maxey to a degree. So you can still get some looks, but you're not going to get the same quality of looks as you're going to get when Joel Embiid is out there on the floor. And then you look at the Sixers, you look at the rotation that they've used. It's been really shallow. Even if they put 10 players in a game, it's often been for minor minutes. So with Embiid out, I don't like there's no obvious player that they turn to off their bench to suddenly make things better or to really give themselves a shot here. So I just don't see it. I mean, I've got Miami in 4 if Embiid doesn't play.
Ooh.
I still think Miami takes it, even if Embiid does play. But if he doesn't, and that's the way it looks like this is trending, I don't see the Sixers getting a game here.
Man, that's so you went further than
Okay.
I did. So I will say I'm gonna go Miami in
Okay.
5. I mean, let's not act like I'm like, whoa, Trevor, you're on a crazy island there. Like I'm not, it's not that far. But yeah, I've got Miami in 5 if Embiid either can't play or he's not Embiid.
Sure.
If he gets back, like he plays in like game 3 and just isn't himself, Miami in 5. If Embiid can play and be himself, let's say starting in game 2 or 3, then if he's himself, I think Philly can push this to 7.
They could,
because he's that good. But I would still pick Miami in 7 at that point. But yeah, if he can't go, and none of these reports are great.
No.
Right, because it took a long time to even start getting but nobody knows, like maybe he won't miss time like that. Those came out way after the initial reporting of he's got the broken orbital bone. So yeah, I'm gonna lean. He doesn't play, and if he does, he's not himself. Miami in 5.
So I think what's going to be,
Which
it does, and part of the reason why I'm saying in 4 is because I don't trust James Harden to be MVP caliber James Harden to do what he needs to do in order to get them through with a out or diminished Embiid. If you get the James Harden that we saw in the Raptors series, and I think that is more likely, particularly when you look at Miami's defense, I think they're going to be able to lock in even more on him. You get a 41% shooting from the field, James Harden. I don't think that leads to success for the 76ers.
Can you imagine? It's like let's say it is 5 and it's 3-1 Miami, and they go back to Miami for a game 5. Like James Harden spends the night before in South Beach. I can't even imagine what that's going to look like in game 5. Like that could be a all-time disaster game. So yeah, it's yeah. I mean, this is just awful. Like it really is. Like I can't. I don't know. It just kills me that this is, you get to this point in the playoffs and we now have we've got both East series impacted by major, absences in Embiid and Chris Middleton. West, we're we're better off because Luka and Booker are healthy. It seems like at least. So yeah. But
it's amazing how quickly this changes. Because after the first 2 games against Toronto, everybody was going, ooh, 76ers, they won by 20, won by 15. You're like, okay, all right, this team's for real. And now here we are 3 games later, and we're saying they're gonna get torched here against the Heat.
Like it stinks too, because I think we were looking at these as like these are great second round series. Like all of the higher seeds advanced. We feel really good about all these teams. Like these could be some all-time really good matchups. And now all of a sudden it's like, all right, the 2 East ones are a little wrecked by injury potentially. The West ones, they could be okay, but who knows? So, and I think we're both hoping the West series go a little longer than maybe we think they might actually go. But yeah, all around, let's see. But I'm excited to get there. So recapping it, I've got Celtics in 5 over the Bucks, Heat in 5 over the Sixers. Both picks heavily impacted by injuries for the Bucks and Sixers. I've got Warriors in 6 over the Grizzlies, and my heart says Suns in 7 over the Mavs.
And I am in lockstep with all of Keith's picks, except I have Heat in 4 if no Embiid. If Embiid comes back, I could see it going 6, but I'm going to say Heat in 4. With no Embiid in there. All right. Well, I think that's we almost hit the hour mark here for a Saturday show. That's pretty solid. That's pretty
good.
solid. So, but again, front runners, we appreciate all of you who joined us over on the live play-by-play. That was a lot of fun. Again, we will do another one of those real soon. Maybe we'll have to do that on Monday. I know tomorrow's games don't work, but maybe Monday night's game. We'll figure that out and let you guys know.
Follow us on social and everywhere, and we'll
also post it here on the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. I'll put it up as a post.
Drop your picks in the comments too for the second round series. Let us know what you're thinking. And you have plenty of time because there's no games this Saturday. Right. So I know Trevor told us he's headed off to the farmer's market. I am going to get ready to head off for a long day and afternoon of soccer at the soccer fields, if the weather holds. Right now, fingers crossed. I think we're going to be okay.
Best of luck out there. Hopefully that goes well for you. I am going to go hit the farmer's market, maybe see if we can go to the movies or something like that. Enjoy a Saturday, and then we're right back to NBA action tomorrow. But everybody, appreciate you joining us. Make sure you do subscribe to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. Don't forget to ring the notification bell. And then over on Apple Podcasts, we love getting the reviews over there. So cool seeing what people have been saying about our show. Really feels great. So make sure you drop us a review there, and preferably a 5-star rating if you wouldn't mind. Till next time, everybody, have a great weekend. See ya, and stay safe.